Hey, welcome back. I'm Ferrixter, here to bring you some more Pokemon Go Battle League battles. These battles are played in Ultra Premier Cup. I'm coming around to Ultra Premier. I like it a lot more now that there's tons of XL Mons in there. I know the XL Mons are a complaint for some people, but I feel like it's making the meta a lot more diverse. And that makes it a little bit more enjoyable for me. I felt before that Ultra Premier got kind of stale kind of quickly. And now it's kept a lot more interesting and flexible because people are continuously getting enough XL candy, and the meta is shifting around more, whereas before it was shifting around pretty much none. Really expensive Great League. It's fine now. So this is the team I've been running for the last day or two. I am opening with a shiny Swampert. It is rank number 2 for Ultra League. I didn't catch this anytime recently. This was actually one of the leftover Pokemon that I held on to trade to someone if they were missing a Community Day shiny, because back during that first Community Day, there was no PvP yet. So it was just something that had bad IVs. It was just a leftover shiny that I happened to hang on to, and it turned out to be amazing for Ultra League. So I'm really glad that happenstance panned out for me. Also running Talonflame. I did use XL Candy, obviously, to power this up. It's the Hundo. I didn't want to go with the Best Buddy rank 1 because it just doesn't seem like as good a use of your Best Buddy slot as something like Umbreon, Skarmory, or G-Fisk would be, because it's always better to use your Best Buddy slot on something that isn't reaching 2,500 than on something that you're just going for a slightly better IV spread on. The difference in stat product is just a lot higher otherwise. And I also have Gallade in the back, rank 132 with Confusion, Leaf Blade, and Close Combat. If you don't have a Talonflame or don't want to spend the Candy XL, Charizard with Fire Spin is a totally suitable replacement, and also okay would be a Typhlosion with Incinerate. That would be fine. Also, most of those cover most of the same thing, and they would have done a similar job against most of the Pokemon that Talonflame ends up encountering. If you, for whatever reason, want to play Politoed instead of Swampert, you can totally do that, but it's going to be, I think, for this team, a little bit less good because your bad leads like Dragonite or Kingdra will be much, much worse. Dragonite without the efficiency of Hydro Cannon or the power of Swampert's Earthquake versus Politoed's. So I would definitely recommend using the cheaper, better option of Swampert. And if you don't have a Gallade, I'd say you can swap in some other Confusioner, but it's going to make the Umbreon matchup impossible. And Gallade just has better coverage moves than Exeggutor or Slowbro or Bronzong, just because there's a lot of variety in Confusion, Leaf Blade, and Close Combat. But that's my team, and that's more or less how you can build it if you don't have exactly that. But let's hop in to these games. My first opponent is Josh O'Merks. These battles are played at, I think I'm at like 2672 MMR. I had lost quite a bit of elo in the last few days because I was experimenting, and then live on stream, I was fulfilling a viewer request, and I played 5 sets with Bouffalant, and I would not recommend Bouffalant to anyone. Although I did have like a fairly positive set running Gallade with Bouffalant and Shadow Snorlax, an ABB team, which I usually try to avoid, but playing AB Boof was fun because it was unbelievably novel, and a lot of my opponents must have looked at that and been like, what is Ferrixter doing right now? It just makes no sense. So it was fun for that. But yeah, let's commentate these games. So Machamp comes out, and Swampert can slightly outpace Machamp if they're going straight cross chop. Well, they will be going straight cross chop because they're not going to throw the Rock Slide. It's not very effective against ground. So I was forced to shield this so that I can get this Hydro Cannon out. It's dangerous to swap a Talonflame into a Machamp because the Machamp will just outpace to the first Rock Slide. So it just felt like it made more sense for me to just shield since I was at the Hydro Cannon to get that out. And turned out to be the right move because there's a Charizard back there. And Charizard has an all-right situational matchup against Talonflame. But I survived the first Blast Burn no problem, and I'm able to just Incinerate down. So GG to my opponent. Alright, next battle against... Oh my gosh, why is it not popping up? Against For You to Fear. Swampert into Politoed. Swampert into Shadow Politoed. Shadow Politoed is kind of rough for a Swampert opening just because it does outpace, and I don't resist water, and they do. So I built up to the Earthquake and just tried to bait with Hydro Cannon. It turned out to be a terrible idea. I really should have just straight thrown the Earthquake. Weather Ball Water is hitting me for neutral, so it's doing a little bit more. And they're also able to outpace me, so it doesn't really make a ton of sense to try to shield the Politoed because that'll just help them get even further and further ahead. So, throw the second Hydro Cannon, and since they cut me off here before I was like really close to the Hydro Cannon, I decided to just no shield, not let them get even further ahead, and I'll just take the shield advantage and switch into Gallade, who at least will be able to one-shot and do really significant damage with the confusions. I didn't throw the Leaf Blade right away because I was anticipating a swap-in, so I built up to well over a close combat, and then I'm going to bait with Leaf Blade, sort of. Thing is, if you throw the close combat, you'll have to throw a bunch more confusions in order to take out G-Fisk. But, like, looking at this, I really should have thrown the close combat and then ducked out right away to Talonflame to incinerate the rest of the way down. That actually would have been the right move, and so this is really not the most amazing play. It may be the thing that cost me the game, but the thing that probably cost me the game was a Kingdra coming out which double resists fire against when I only had Talonflame left anyway. So yeah, this is kind of been tough alignment for me, but I'm gonna do the best I can with this. I have to throw the Flame Charge first because otherwise the Brave Bird will not KO. I built up extra energy before throwing the Brave Bird so that maybe they'll be more inclined to not shield, assuming that I'm baiting again with Flame Charge. And then I throw this Flame Charge as soon as I have it. This Politoed gets nearly and gets 3/4 of a Weather Ball Water in the time it takes me to throw one Incinerate, because Incinerate is just such a slow move. And Politoed gets to Weather Ball ridiculously fast. And now they're just going to throw this Weather Ball Water, take out my Talonflame, and they might be just barely in Confusion range. I throw one Confusion, but it's just barely not enough, and my opponent takes me out. GG. Alright, next up against Nobu913. Swampert into Shadowlax. This is okay. I'm just going to be building up to an Earthquake. I managed to sneak in most of a Mudshot there, which is really good for me. Helps me get even further ahead of him in pacing. And I built up to the second Hydro Cannon and then throw. Since it would actually technically take 3 Hydro Cannons to take them out, oof, they managed to catch my Hydro on Kingdra. That's crazy. I usually like to throw 2 Hydro Cannons and then duck out to Gallade to try to land 1 Confusion. But, I mean, this is okay, too. I'm building up to this Earthquake and throwing it. This probably isn't the best plan. I really probably should have switched into Gallade right away to start doing confusion damage and throw these Leaf Blades out a lot earlier. Now he's at well past an Outrage, but I decide to no shield, anticipating that he's likely to Octazooka me. And since he got the attack drop, it's probable that he's just going to Dragon Breath me the rest of the way down. So I'm going to throw this first Leaf Blade, and they ended up no shielding it. And I get to the second Leaf Blade right before I faint, so I'm going to throw this too. In their position, I would have shielded that just because they're out and outraged, so they'll certainly be able to get that shield back. But they decide to let it go down, and there's a Ninetales in the back, so this is good for me. Now Talonflame can come back out, and I'm just going to straight Flame Charge against this Shadow Snorlax and shield the Body Slams because they do a little bit more damage from the Shadow Snorlax than a Weather Ball Ice from Alolan Ninetales. And now, since they're pretty close to fainting, I'm just going to throw one extra Incinerate, and now I will be able to... I have a boosted Flame Charge ready for Alolan Ninetales when they come back out. So just throw this, and now it's just one Incinerate away from the second one, and yeah, pretty much was able to close out that game no problem. I zero bubble this because at this point any amount of damage would take them out. I had only thrown it because I didn't want them to reach a Weather Ball Ice, because Weather Ball Ice with all those charms, that damage adds up pretty fast. Next up against Jarunja, who I must say has a fantastic outfit compared to my avatar. So Swampert into Shadow Swamp. Swampert and Shadow Swampert. Here they're going to throw the Earthquake, which maybe would take a Swampert out if it had worse IVs, and maybe they assumed that my Swampert had worse IVs because it was the shiny. That is an assumption that I frequently make myself. But since I actually don't, the right thing for them to have done would have been to throw 2 Hydro Cannons, and I'm actually making a mistake right here because I should have charged up more first before throwing the second Hydro, just so the thing that would come out next wouldn't be able to get as much farm. And if I had thrown Mud Shots instead and taken damage from their Mud Shots, I still would have been able to reach this Hydro Cannon just fine. So, tiny mistake there, but it's good to be able to recognize that it was a tiny mistake so that we can all learn from that and improve ever so slightly. And yeah, now I'm going to send Gallade out. I'm going to no-shield this first lunge because I survived that no problem. Hits for neutral, and I'm obviously going to have to shield the second one. I'm going to build up to the close combat, and well, I'm going to throw the close combat, but first I'm going to build a little bit past it. And my opponent actually switches out into a Scavalier, which is great for me. So yeah, definitely just going to come out and incinerate this all the way down. I'm not going to shield this. Nothing a Scavalier can hit for anything more than neutral if it was Aerial Ace, which is a terrible move anyway. So I really don't have anything to fear here. And they managed to get out a second drill run, and that's fine. I am at back-to-back Flame Charge, and I have a shield. So all I need to do is throw this Flame Charge, and then throw the next one. Even if they throw their lunge in the middle, it doesn't make any difference. My opponent recognizes that, doesn't shield, and I take them out. GG. All right, next up against Kisacha. Swampert into a Scavalier. This is a positive matchup for Swampert. I just need to go straight Hydro Cannon and try to throw at random-ish times so that they are less likely to catch the Hydro on something. Not going to shield this Drill Run, and I'm throwing this Hydro Cannon. Hydro Cannon does a little over half damage, I think. Oh my gosh, they switch out and catch on Umbreon. I don't know how they timed that out correctly, but I mean, good job. But that's all right. It's not like Swampert was resisting the Hydro Cannon, so it's not like it went to waste. And then I'm just going to switch into Talonflame because they weren't really in like close combat range yet. Throwing this Flame Charge, and I'm just going to throw my second one as soon as I've got it. Not going to shield these moves unless I have to. But, you know, since they're Dark Pulsing, makes a little bit more sense to shield. I'm seeing more Umbreons with Dark Pulse than I used to. I'm not sure if that's actually a sensible thing to do. I know it has slightly more efficiency. Oh my gosh, they actively swapped into Gallade against Talonflame. Okay. So I'm just going to throw this Flame Charge as soon as I can, and I guess I'm going to switch out now. I don't know if that was the right decision. I'm going to shield this Leaf Blade, but I think they might be they're going to outpace me to their next Leaf Blade, which is going to land, and it's going to do so much damage. Hopefully I survive and am able to get my Leaf Blade off, but I'm not quite able to get that. And now I send out Swampert. I throw one Mud Shot and then throw my Hydro Cannon because otherwise the confusion would land, and honestly it would probably be enough to take me out at that point. And a Scav comes back out. I'm not able to reach the Hydro Cannon, and they have a move, so they are able to throw this Drill Run and take out my Talonflame. So yeah, I don't know if I played that out the way I should have, but GG to my opponent. I mean, they definitely pulled it out very well with aggressive swaps, and they really kind of muddied up the game. And it was a lot less clear what the right choice for me to do would have been at different times. I get a Galvantula, which is fantastic. Add that to my Candy XL pile. I think my Jolta Candy XL pile is at like, I want to say 75. It's not there yet. It's got a ways to go. All right. Next up against Yuri Avenger. Venusaur in the lead. This is obviously really, really bad for Swampert. I switch into Gallade when this happens because if I can get a Confusion of damage in, it's fantastic. And that can actually bring a Venusaur down into like Earthquake plus Mudshot range. If I can, on a Shadow, if I can get even just one Confusion in. But my opponent was too fast, switched out. And now I have shielded the first Earthquake. I'm going to throw this Close Combat. Doesn't quite take them out, and I have to throw one more Confusion. That's fine. I'm not going to bother shielding this Rock Slide. It's okay. it's resisted, so even though I lowered my defense, it's definitely not going to take me out. And I'm still healthy enough to not really be in an easy farm down range. So they come out with Empoleon, and I don't know, somehow I wasn't able to throw the close combat, even though I'm pretty sure I hit it before their third Hydro Cannon landed. I'm not sure what that was, maybe a tiny amount of lag or something, but either way, that's really bad that I wasn't able to get that close combat out. Even throwing a Leaf Blade would have been fine. I was very likely to get a shield. There was no reason for me to try to do that. It was just, if I throw one Confusion and then the move, they'll have gotten, 2 Hydro Cannons in, or 2 Waterfalls in, whereas if I throw 2, then they get 3 in. It's just a slightly better deal. But, okay, this is looking really bad. I'm able to get to this Flame Charge before they're able to reach their last Hydro Cannon, and it just barely doesn't take them out. I needed to do, like, one more Mud Shot of damage. So if I had managed to squeeze in one extra Mud Shot at some point, maybe throwing my Hydro Cannon slightly more efficiently with their fast move timing, would have been able to flip that matchup, but wasn't able to do it. That's all right. GG to my opponent. That was on me. Okay. So Charizard in the lead, obviously positive. They switch into Kingdra, and I swap into my Gallade right away. This move is coming out way too fast to be an outrage, so I'm going to no-shield the Octazooka and hope that it doesn't debuff me, but it always does. For a move with a 50% debuff rate, it looks an awful lot more like 100. I don't know about you guys, but that's been my experience for all of this season. Gonna throw this second Leaf Blade. Doesn't do that much because they debuffed me. But at least I was able to get a shield advantage out of that. So now I'm just going to build up and throw this Hydro Cannon as soon as I've got it. It's double resisted, so it doesn't quite take them out. But now they're in Mud Shot range, so I'm just going to Mud Shot them down. I'm going to shield this. I'm assuming it's probably an Outrage, and it is, so that's a good shield. And now at least I have some energy for whatever comes out, and it's a Dragonite, which resists all of Swampert's moves, but Hydro Cannon is just so efficient and does so much damage that, the Hydro Cannon that I had built already and plus these extras will be enough. I'll at least be able to force a shield out of them or take them out. For whatever reason, I decide not to stay in and throw my last Hydro Cannon because, I'm figuring something in the back is probably even worse. Again, something in the back is probably pretty bad against Swampert, and it is. It's a Charizard in the back. So, gonna throw this Flame Charge, and they no-shield it. They sneak in a Fire Spin, and I'm gonna throw the second Flame Charge, and they still no-shield it, which makes sense. I probably should have thrown one Incinerate, so at least I could have threatened the oh my gosh, they Fire Spin me down. That's rough. And they managed to get to their last Blast Burn, so they take me out. Oof, okay, that was rough. I won that lead too, so that was just... that wasn't the best play in that particular matchup. But, Double Dragon it can be a bit of a challenge for this team when they get their alignment right. So Escavalier, and they swap out to Gallade. I throw this Hydro Cannon in the middle of their confusion, and I'm hoping that they're going to be insta-throwing their Leaf Blade, and I switch to Talonflame to try to catch it. They don't, and that's fine. Here they're built up to 6, which suggests Leaf Blade, but I'm pretty sure they're going to close combat me, because Leaf Blade is double resisted. If they did, and they did, then they won't be able to reach a second move, so it's fine, and I didn't need to shield any of that. Now I'm going to throw this Brave Bird as soon as I have it, which doesn't actually take out the Swampert, but it does do so much damage, so I can definitely understand why they would shield. And now I'm going to throw my second one. I get the second shield, and that's fine. So now they're down 2 shields, but they're building up a lot of energy because they just Mud-Shotted down my Talonflame. So I'm going to send out Gallade. I'm not going to shield this first move. If it's an Earthquake, it won't take me out. Hydro Cannon won't either. They throw one Mud Shot, I get an entire Confusion in. They throw their second Hydro Cannon, and they're really close to their next one, but I figured they were going to try to catch, and they did, so I didn't throw the Leaf Blade. And now Escav is back, so I just swapped back into Swampert, and I'm just going to throw Hydro Cannons. Does a little bit over half. And I'm not going to shield this. I don't think anything that they could possibly have could KO me from this range. Drill Run at least hits for neutral, and it's not quite enough. And now I'm just going to throw this Hydro Cannon as soon as I've got it, because my Gallade has a Leaf Blade stored, and I have a shield. So it doesn't matter even if the Swampert mud-shotted me down and had 5 Hydro Cannons ready to go, it wouldn't make a difference because they would only get 1 out before Leaf Blade came out. So I just spam out this Leaf Blade. My opponent doesn't bother throwing. I hit a couple of bubbles, which is plenty, and take that Swampert down. GG. All right. Next up, against Tenzin Zingha. Swampert into Venusaur, obviously a really, really bad lead. Insta-swap into Gallade to try to get a confusion in. They are too fast for that because, I mean, they're expecting you to insta-swap. I met with an Umbreon, which is the reason that I think you should definitely pack Gallade and not some other Confusioner. Just as a safe swap, has a lot more variety in the moves that it throws. So I'm going to throw this Close Combat, which doesn't do nearly enough damage because Umbreon is such a thick little thickie, and nothing hurts it. And throw this second Close Combat. They wouldn't have been able to throw a move in the middle because I threw the Close Combat in between their fast move animation. So in that way, I prevented them from sneaking a charge move in the middle, because since Gallade also wins CMP, I would be able to double throw even if they tried to spam one out around the same time. It's just the advantage of if it had ended up being a desync CMP. And now I'm going to absorb all this damage with Swampert and just try to build up. Because, I mean, there's no reason to try to keep Swampert healthy because Venusaur is going to come in, and a single Blade of Grass kills Swampert anyway. So there was no need to waste a shield there, and turned out to definitely be the right move because they are kind of weak to Talonflame now. G-Fisk's Rock Slide will not one-shot, but since it does a lot more than a Sludge Bomb, I'm going to be shielding both of them. And I just need to toss these Flame Charges out as soon as I have them to prevent G-Fisk from getting to throw more than two Rock Slides. I sneak an Incinerate in the middle there, which wasn't necessary at all. After this Rock Slide, their Energy Dry and Incinerate afterwards would have been fine also, so it's not like you needed to sneak a move in. That matchup is just fine for Talonflame when you've got 2 shields. So yeah, lost that lead, was able to pull it back anyway. And my Swampert had tons of energy in the back, so if something different had happened, I would have been able to Earthquake that Venusaur, at the bare minimum. So that it would have been something. Alright. Swampert into Clefable. This is fine. Like, the Charm damage obviously does a lot, but Hydro Cannon does a lot also. I throw the second Hydro Cannon, and they managed to catch on their Snorlax, which actually is okay. I would have thrown this Hydro Cannon against the Shadowlax anyway. Now I'm going to outpace them to a Hydro Cannon. I'm going to throw this Hydro Cannon as soon as I've got it before they're able to Body Slam me. And if they no-shield this, I'm just going to switch into Gallade right away. Not so much to catch the move, but just because they're not in Mudshot downrange, but they're definitely in Confusion downrange. So this is just like a very efficient way of taking out the Snorlax. And now I have a little bit of energy because I know Clefable is just going to come out and charm me down. I try to throw this Leaf Blade, and I don't know if that's lag or something, but the Leaf Blade doesn't go out. Would have really helped because it would have eaten up one of their shields or brought them down into just like a sliver of health left. And yeah, brought Talonflame in, and they switch into Obstagoon. So it was definitely good that I shielded the move from Clefable because the Night Slashes from Obs aren't really going to do that much, and they have 2 shields. So they no-shield the first Flame Charge, which is 100% the right choice. And I'm going to no-shield the first Night Slash. Thankfully, they don't get the boost. I throw this next Flame Charge as soon as I have it because I need my Incinerates to be doing as much damage as they can. They get to their next move, and I'm going to no-shield this one also because I'm still not really in... And they get the freaking attack boost. That's like a 1 in 8 chance of getting that boost, but they got it on their second one. And now they throw another Night Slash, and they get another boost. So they were double boosted doing those counters. So because of that, I'm only able to throw this one Flame Charge before I'm going to get charmed down. So I just swap out into Swampert because I just need to get to 1 Hydro Cannon. And if you didn't know it, if you hadn't heard, if you need to get to the Hydro Cannon, Swampert is your Pokemon. he gets there. All right, and I was able to take this game. So GG to my opponent. That was well played. That is definitely a positive lead. I get a Rayquaza, and I think I just end this video after throwing one ball because there's just no freaking way that I managed to catch it on the first one. Yeah, no. I think I ended up throwing like 30 Ultra Balls at this thing because I was stubbornly trying to throw just a Pineapple Berry to, you know, use them up because there's so many Pokestops around here. I always end up with so many. But yeah, it's a reward even though the IVs are terrible. Alright, so my opponent swaps out right away to Ninetales and is greeted with my Talonflame. So I have very strong alignment right now, and I don't even really need to win switch advantage here because Gallade does fine against G-Fisk also. So not shielding this first move, and since they shield, I'm going to go ahead and no shield the second one because I'm going to survive it and I'm going to be able to get to my next Flame Charge. And at this point, I've put them into a position where they don't want to go down a shield and lose switch advantage because they really need switch here, they think. So I throw the second Flame Charge, and my Incinerate doesn't go through, which is tough, because actually that Incinerate going through would have made it a much easier farm down for Gallade. So I'm forced to burn one shield here in case they are throwing a Dazzling Gleam. But I'm not going to need to shield this because it is for sure just the Weather Ball Ice. And since I'm confusioning them the whole way down, I have a close combat ready, and I have a shield. So Stunfisk comes back out. I need to throw one Leaf Blade first, and then throw the close combat. Otherwise, I would have to throw a close combat with a ton of confusions, and I have more energy, and I need to kind of retain this health. I don't need them getting to an Earthquake and possibly baiting me, and oh my gosh, there's a freaking Venusaur in the back. This is, like, really rough, but I had, like, 2 mud shots from before. So in the time it takes them to get to this Frenzy Plant, I'm able to get to my first Earthquake, which does quite a lot of damage, hits for neutral, and now I just need to get to the Hydro Cannon to take out this Venusaur, and if you hadn't heard, Swampert is pretty damn good at getting to the Hydro Cannon. And yeah, my Swampert just kind of took out that Venusaur by itself. It was just needed those 2 mud shots and obviously needed that 1 shield. But yeah, that must be, I'm sure for all the Swampert players out there, that must have been very satisfying. And for the Venusaur players out there, it must have kind of hurt. But all right, Swampert into Machamp, into a non-Shadow Machamp. I actually prefer the Shadow Machamp because the non-Shadow can take the Hydro Cannon with all of the mud shots a lot easier. Whereas the Shadow, it puts them so low that you can actually sometimes switch into Gallade and get 1 confusion in and murder them. Oh, not murder them, and KO them. That's... sorry. It's not really that brutal. It's just Pokemon fighting. It's not... There's no murder going on here. All right. I switch into Gallade and am met with a Talonflame, which is tough. But I'm just going to shield this first Flame Charge. Now, they're at their next Flame Charge, but if they decide to shield this, I'll just shield, and I'm really close to my next close combat, so it would take them out. It would just put us all like down shields altogether. So they were banking on maybe me throwing a Leaf Blade bait, which if I had been doing that, that would have been really bad for me. So an Empoleon comes out, and these waterfalls are doing more because I debuffed myself, and I'm throwing this Leaf Blade. And now, if I could get to the close combat, I'd be able to close this out, but I'm not quite able to get there, so I'm just going to throw this Leaf Blade, do the chip damage, and I go down. Now, they have thrown 4 waterfalls already. So I'm actually going to send Talonflame out into this water Pokemon. They're at 6 now. So I'm going to shield this, and they're still 4 away from their next Hydro Cannon. So I'm not going to throw this instantly, and I saw that the Machamp was coming out, so I did throw right away, because this Machamp had switched out with quite a bit of energy, so they would have been able to reach the Rock Slide if I hadn't thrown right away. Like, if I had thrown 1 extra Incinerate, if I wasn't waiting to see what would happen, would definitely have reached that and taken me out. And now I just need Swampert to get to the Hydro Cannon, and if you hadn't heard, Swampert is damn good at getting to the Hydro Cannons. And take out this Empoleon and wrap up this game. GG to my opponent. You guys have heard that before, right? Swampert, damn good at getting to the Hydro Cannons. It really is. Swampert into Skarmory. Okay, this is positive for Swampert. They switch out into their own Swampert, and I am not switching out fast enough. Skarmory is kind of a wall to Gallade, so really it would have benefited me to swap into Gallade a lot sooner. My opponent doesn't throw their next Hydro Cannon as soon as they have it, so I'm able to get this Leaf Blade out and take up 1 shield. If I had landed this 1 extra Confusion, it would have been a lot better for me. There's a case to be made that I should have maybe shielded, but Swampert outpaces Gallade, so I didn't really want to just let them get further ahead on energy, just to get out that 1 extra Confusion. And I throw this Hydro Cannon. I'm going to no-shield this Hydro Cannon from this shiny Swampert and try to Mud Shot the whole way down. I needed to throw 1 extra Mud Shot, but since they had snuck in 1 Mud Shot earlier, they were able to get to this next Hydro Cannon, and it forces me to burn a shield, which puts me in a kind of a tough position, because we're on even shields, and I have very little health left on the Swampert, relatively speaking. But, alright. Throwing 3 Mud Shots and then the Hydro Cannon, that's the most efficient way, and I'm being very careful to fast move deny. Throw this second Hydro Cannon. And now I just need to throw 1 Mud Shot to my next Hydro Cannon. So I do, and I insta-throw this, which means if they're smashing their charge move button, it's a desync CMP tie, so I'm able to swap out after I throw to catch the Sky Attack on my Talonflame, which is definitely great because there's an Ampharos in the back, and I would have been taken out from the Thunder Punch regardless. Throw this Flame Charge, and I'm going to desperately try to get to my next Flame Charge. They are at 5 Volt Switches, so now they're at back-to-back Thunder Punches. So I'm going to no-shield this Thunder Punch. And now I'm going to have to shield this Thunder Punch because I'm single resisting it, and it would take me out. It puts me in kind of a rough spot. 2, and I'm going to throw in the middle of their 3rd Volt Switch because I actually don't want to receive the damage from that Volt Switch, and obviously if they reach their charge move, I'm super dead. And now I just need to reach this Hydro Cannon before this Skarmory air slashes me down, and I do because Swampert is amazing at reaching the Hydro Cannon. Really, really good at that. That's the thing that Swampert is definitely best at, reaching the Hydro Cannon. And yeah, take that game. Next up, against Alvaro Vacar. That was a tough name for me, I'm sorry. All right, Swampert into Machamp. Again, Swampert outpaces Machamp a little bit, as long as they don't sneak in a counter, but they do, so instead we're going to be hitting our second charge move at the same time. They shield the Hydro Cannon, which makes me think maybe they're kind of weak to Swampert in the back, or have been Earthquaked before, which is hard for me to believe, but I mean, I guess it happens. There's not really a reason to Earthquake the Machamp. It won't take them out. You'll be forced to throw a second charge move anyway, so since you're going to have to throw 2, they might as well be Hydro Cannons. And I'm going to shield this Cross Chop and throw my Hydro Cannon, not as soon as I have it, because I was anticipating maybe they were going to swap out to try to catch. So I'm just going to throw it here when they're reaching their Cross Chop. So if they wanted to trade out the last shields, we totally could, and there's an Excadrill back there, which is like a poor man's G-Fisk. They shield the Hydro Cannon and farm me all the way down, which they have a lot of energy now. Thankfully, they can't really hit Gallade that hard. The most they can do is hit me with a neutral Drill Run, which does a lot, but not enough. And now they've reached their second Drill Run because they had so much energy there. So I'm going to shield this, and they CMP'd with me, so I'm throwing this close combat, whereas, if it had happened before, it would have thrown 1 extra Confusion first, so good on them. They got that just right, and there's a Talonflame in the back. So I insta-swapped into my own Talonflame. I'm throwing this Flame Charge as soon as I have it, and I was very careful to fast move deny, because actually, if the Talonflame is able to sneak in 1 Incinerate, then this Brave Bird that they're throwing would take me out. They had thrown 6 Incinerates, but you actually have to squeeze in a 7th Incinerate somewhere to take out a Hundo Talonflame with a Hundo Talonflame. Just so you all know, you're going to have to overthrow by 2 moves before throwing the... so it's a lot of wasted energy, but that is the better way to go about it. So I definitely think my opponent played that out the way they should have. Just if they had snuck in 1 Incinerate, they would have absolutely flipped that game, because they would have had plenty of energy left over. Oh my gosh. So this is a bad lead. Swampert into Dragonite, and Dragonite kind of has a pretty good matchup against my entire team. But that's not so bad, because the Shadow can only really withstand 2 Hydro Cannons, and I'm throwing them right away because I want them to land. I don't want to bait and for them to call, because I would much rather them know it's Hydro Cannon so that they won't shield it. Because then I can switch on into Gallade, and if they're slow to the swap, you can that one confusion that sneaks in is enough to KO after landing 2 Hydro Cannons. My opponent brought Gengar in, so I just straight farmed down with confusion. No reason to throw a charge move there. I just had to shield once, and I insta-threw this Leaf Blade because I know Dragonite has energy and is going to come back out and try to insta-throw the Dragon Claw. So I'm going to shield this, and now the one confusion that I wanted to get in before gets in now and takes Dragonite out. And now there's an Empoleon in the back, so I'm just going to throw this close combat as soon as I have it. My opponent was trying to call my bait, assuming that I would have maybe thrown the Leaf Blade. And yeah, because that landed, I was able to take out that Empoleon. So yeah, Dragonite, kind of a tough lead, but Hydro Cannon does such ridiculous damage. It 2 of them plus 1 confusion is the way to try to play out the Shadow Dragonite matchup. Against regular Dragonite, you kind of have to absorb 1 Dragon Claw and throw the 3rd Hydro Cannon. But yeah, 5 out of 5, took that game, and now I'm back up into expert rank. It's always a nice place to be. Yeah, but that was my team. That's how you play it, and those are the matches that I went through. Hope you enjoy this content. Don't forget to do the things that you're supposed to do at the ends of videos. You know what I'm talking about. I will see you guys on the next one.